Commander Laura Miller stood at the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the strange object displayed on the main screen. It wasn't a comet or asteroid. Its movements were too deliberate, too controlled. After 20 years with NASA, she knew she was looking at something unprecedented. "Have we confirmed it's not one of ours?" she asked, voice steady despite her racing heart. Her second-in-command, Greg Powell, nodded. "Checked 3 times. It's not American, Russian, Chinese, or from any private space company. Whatever it is, it's not from Earth." The object had appeared 2 days ago, moving slowly at the edge of our solar system. The Jupiter Research Station had spotted it first, its unusual radiation signature triggering automated alerts. Now everyone at the station was working around the clock, analyzing every byte of data they could gather. "The President wants hourly updates," said Communications Officer Diane Foster, approaching with a tablet. "And the UN Security Council has called an emergency meeting." Miller nodded, taking the tablet. The implications were enormous. After decades of searching the stars, something had found them instead. "What's its trajectory?" she asked. "That's the thing," Powell replied, pulling up a simulation on his screen. "It's adjusting course. It seems to be heading directly toward Earth." Within days, governments worldwide had formed an unprecedented unified response team. Old enemies shared intelligence and resources as the probe continued its approach. The world held its breath, glued to news reports as military forces went on high alert. Dr. Alan Garcia, a xenolinguistics expert hastily recruited from Berkeley, led attempts to decode signals now being transmitted from the object. "They're sending the same pattern repeatedly," he explained to the assembled world leaders on a secure video call. "It appears to be a mathematical sequence followed by what might be language samples." President Harriet Coles looked grim. "Are they trying to communicate, or is this a warning?" "We believe it's an invitation to respond," Garcia said. "We've prepared a message using similar mathematical principles." 3 weeks after the probe's discovery, humanity sent its reply. The response came faster than anyone expected. The probe changed direction again, accelerating toward Earth at incredible speed. But that wasn't what shocked the world. As the probe neared Mars, something happened that changed humanity forever. A massive ship, nearly the size of Manhattan, suddenly appeared in orbit around Earth. It had somehow traveled across the solar system in minutes, using technology beyond human comprehension. Global panic ensued. Stock markets crashed. Religious congregations swelled. Military bases worldwide went to deaf Sion 2. The alien vessel remained silent for 24 hours before broadcasting a message simultaneously to every electronic device on Earth. The message was in perfect English and 16 other major languages. "People of Earth, we represent the Galactic Council, governing body of civilized species within this sector. Your world has been monitored since your early development. Your recent technological progress has qualified you for contact. Representatives will arrive to discuss your integration into the galactic community." 6 hours later, a smaller vessel detached from the mothership and landed in the neutral territory of Antarctica, where a hastily assembled United Nations delegation waited. The aliens called themselves the Xanthari. Tall, with bluish skin and 4 arms, they moved with unsettling grace. Their leader, Ambassador Krell, spoke through a translation device. "Your species has potential but requires guidance. The Council offers protection and technology in exchange for allegiance and resources. You will become a protectorate. This is not a negotiation." The human delegation, led by veteran diplomat Peter Hayes, attempted to discuss terms, but Krell was unmoved. "You have 7 days to prepare your people for transition. Resistance would be unwise. 263 species have joined our community. None who declined our offer remain." As the Xanthari returned to their ship, Hayes contacted world leaders with the ultimatum. Publicly, Earth's governments began preparations to welcome their new galactic overlords. Privately, military leaders met in a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains to plan something else entirely. Earth would not surrender without a fight. Ambassador John Reeves straightened his tie and took a deep breath before entering the negotiation chamber. For the third day in a row, he would face Ambassador Krell of the Zinthari, pretending to discuss Earth's peaceful transition to protectorate status. Behind his diplomatic smile, Reeves carried the weight of humanity's secret resistance plans. "The Council is growing impatient," Krell said, his forearms positioned in what humans had learned was a gesture of superiority. "Your leaders continue to request clarifications on matters we have already explained." Reeves nodded apologetically. "Please understand, Ambassador, our governmental systems are complex. We need time to prepare our citizens for such a monumental change." What Reeves didn't mention was that each hour of delay gave Earth precious time to prepare its defenses. 500 miles away, deep under the Atlantic Ocean, Admiral Frank Carter reviewed the latest military assessments in a facility unknown even to most world governments. Operation Defiance had been activated the moment the Zinthari delivered their ultimatum. "What's the status on the modified missiles?" Carter asked the room of military leaders from a dozen nations. General Maria Sanchez, formerly of the Brazilian Air Force, stepped forward. "We've successfully integrated the new guidance systems into 40% of our arsenal. The shielding modifications are proceeding faster than expected." Carter nodded grimly. "And the reverse engineering team?" In a laboratory buried beneath the Arizona desert, scientists Olivia Wilson and Daniel Garcio worked frantically to understand the alien technology recovered from debris the Zinthari had carelessly left behind. Small pieces of material, fragments of devices, seemingly insignificant items that the aliens had disposed of, not realizing humans would study them. "Look at this," Garcia said, pointing to a microscope display. "Their power cells operate on principles we've only theorized about, but I think we can replicate a crude version." Wilson nodded, making notes. "If we can adapt this to our weapons systems, we might actually stand a chance." The Zinthari and the Galactic Council had made a critical error in their assessment of humanity. They saw Earth's official military technology and dismissed it as primitive. They didn't account for human ingenuity or the fact that nations would set aside centuries of conflict to unite against an external threat. Most importantly, they didn't realize humans were masters of deception. Ambassador Krell reported back to the Council mothership daily. "The humans continue their diplomatic delays, but they pose no threat. Their technology is basic, their weapons primitive. They have no unified planetary government, which makes their submission inevitable." The Council, having conquered hundreds of worlds, had grown complacent. They believed their scanners had detected all of Earth's military capabilities. They hadn't found the hidden facilities, the submarines beneath the oceans, or the secret space platforms disguised as debris. While Reeves continued diplomatic talks, gathering valuable intelligence about Council weaknesses, Earth's military prepared. Scientists worked around the clock to adapt alien technology. Factories worldwide shifted to war production under the guise of infrastructure improvement. 5 days into the 7-day ultimatum, Reeves managed his greatest intelligence coup. "Ambassador Krell," he said casually during a break in negotiations, "I couldn't help noticing your fleet positions. Are you concerned about an attack from another direction?" Krell made a sound like laughter. "No species would dare challenge the Council. This standard deployment protects against the unlikely event of mechanical failure in our primary systems." The information was immediately relayed to Admiral Carter. They now knew the Zinthari fleet had a vulnerable flank and potentially redundant systems that could be targeted. As the 7th day approached, Earth appeared to be preparing for surrender ceremonies. In reality, Operation Thunderbolt was ready to launch. Humanity's fate would soon be decided not by submission, but by resistance. The Galactic Council was about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating humans. The morning of the 7th day dawned with an uneasy calm across Earth. In major cities, people went about their business, many unaware that today marked the deadline for humanity's answer to the Galactic Council's ultimatum. Those who knew waited anxiously for news. At 9:17 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that calm was shattered. Without warning or further communication, the Zinthari ships fired what they later called demonstration strikes at remote locations: the Sahara Desert, the Australian outback, the Siberian tundra, and a section of the Antarctic ice shelf. The attacks created massive craters and sent plumes of dust into the atmosphere. President Coles received the report in the Situation Room, surrounded by grim-faced advisors. "Casualties?" she asked immediately. "Minimal," her chief of staff replied. "They deliberately targeted unpopulated areas. It's a show of force." Minutes later, Ambassador Krell's message was broadcast worldwide. "The Council has demonstrated a fraction of our capabilities. These strikes were merciful, designed only to eliminate doubt about our technological superiority. Your deadline has arrived. Submit now, or the next targets will be populated centers." The world watched as President Coles addressed the Zinthari publicly, her face solemn on screens everywhere. "In light of today's demonstration, Earth's nations have no choice but to accept the Council's terms. We ask for 72 hours to prepare our populations and establish protocols for transition." Krell accepted the extension with obvious satisfaction. The Zinthari believed they had won without a true fight, just as they had on hundreds of worlds before. They were wrong. Behind the scenes, Admiral Carter gave the order: "Initiate Operation Thunderbolt." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, 3 submarines surfaced briefly to launch specially modified missiles, not aimed at the alien ships, but at seemingly empty sectors of space. The missiles deployed advanced electronic countermeasures, chaff that created a temporary blind spot in the Zinthari detection systems. Through this gap, Earth launched its true response. 8 stealth spacecraft, their existence unknown even to most governments until the crisis began, silently accelerated toward the Council mothership. Each vessel was small, carrying only 4 crew members and equipped with weapons based on the reverse-engineered alien technology. Captain Lisa Rodriguez led the assault from the lead ship, Defiance. "Maintain radio silence," she ordered her small fleet. "Active camouflage at maximum. Approach vector unchanged." The Zinthari, celebrating their apparent victory, had reduced their alert status. Their arrogance would cost them dearly. Rodriguez's fleet approached from the vulnerable flank that Reeves had identified during negotiations. Using propulsion systems that left minimal energy signatures, they closed to within striking distance of the mothership. "All ships in position," Rodriguez confirmed. "Weapons hot. Remember your targets." The 8 Earth vessels attacked simultaneously. The first volley targeted the mothership's external sensor array, the eyes and ears of the massive vessel. The second struck their communication systems. The third hit their secondary propulsion systems. The Zinthari, caught completely off guard, scrambled to respond. Their superior technology meant little in the face of such surprise and precise targeting. Rodriguez watched her tactical display as the mothership listed heavily to one side, power fluctuating across its massive hull. "Second wave, execute," she ordered. 4 of her ships launched specialized boarding pods containing elite soldiers from a dozen nations. These troops had trained for just 2 days on how to fight in zero gravity with modified weapons. Inside the Council mothership, alarms blared as Krell received reports of the damage. The attack was impossible. Primitives couldn't have developed such technology or tactics so quickly. "All Council ships, respond," he shouted into the communication system. But the signal wasn't reaching the rest of the fleet. For the first time in the Council's long history of conquest, they faced a species that had not only resisted but had struck back effectively. Earth had fired its first shot in what would become a war for independence against the galaxy. The Zinthari mothership shuddered as emergency systems activated. Red lights flashed through its corridors as confused crew members rushed to battle stations. None had expected an attack from the supposedly primitive humans, and certainly not one that had managed to breach their defenses. Inside the damaged ship, Ambassador Krell stumbled through smoke-filled corridors toward the command center. His forearms gripped support beams as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Two of his aides had already been killed in the initial explosion. "Impossible," he muttered. "Completely impossible." On the bridge, the ship's commander, Supreme Guardian Vex, frantically tried to restore communications with the fleet. "The humans have targeted our quantum relay systems," reported a technician. "We're cut off from the rest of the fleet." Outside, Captain Rodriguez's team continued their assault. 3 of Earth's ships maintained suppressive fire, while the boarding parties infiltrated the mothership through the breaches they'd created. "We're inside," reported Major Steve Bennett, leading the first team of Space Marines, moving toward the central database as planned. Rodriguez acknowledged from the Defiance. "Remember, this is about information as much as damage. Get what we need and get out." The human soldiers moved through the alien vessel with practiced efficiency. They had memorized the ship layouts extracted from the Zinthari probe and trained in simulated environments. Their weapons, conventional firearms modified with reverse-engineered alien technology, fired bursts of concentrated energy that overwhelmed the personal shields of the unprepared Zinthari security forces. In Earth's major command centers, military leaders watched the operation unfold through helmet cameras. Admiral Carter stood motionless, hands clasped behind his back, as the impossible became reality. Humans were winning their first engagement against a vastly superior alien force. "They underestimated us," General Sanchez said, standing beside him. "They thought we would submit like all the others." Carter nodded. "Arrogance makes you vulnerable. That's a lesson as old as warfare itself." On the mothership's bridge, Vex finally managed to activate emergency protocols, deploying internal defense systems. Automated turrets emerged from the walls, firing at the human intruders. Several soldiers fell, but the others pressed forward, using the ship's own structure as cover. Bennett's team reached the central database room and secured it after a brief, intense firefight. Computer specialist Sergeant Kelly Nash immediately began downloading data while the others stood guard. "You won't believe what I'm seeing," Nash reported over the comm. "Records of hundreds of conquered species, technical specifications, fleet deployments. This is a gold mine." Meanwhile, Rodriguez ordered 2 of her ships to break off and attack the smaller Zinthari vessels that were beginning to respond to the mothership's distress signals. The Earth ships, though fewer in number, used hit-and-run tactics that confused the alien commanders who were used to more conventional space warfare. After 20 minutes of fighting, Bennett's voice came through again. "We've got what we need." Beginning extraction. The human forces began a coordinated withdrawal, setting charges on critical systems as they retreated. The mothership's power core remained intact. Destroying it would have vaporized the entire vessel and potentially caused massive damage to Earth's atmosphere. This wasn't about annihilation. It was about sending a message. As Earth's ships pulled back to a safe distance, the charges detonated in sequence. The mothership didn't explode, but its engines, weapon systems, and navigation controls were crippled. The once mighty vessel now drifted in orbit, bleeding atmosphere from multiple breaches. Back on Earth, the data retrieved from the Zinthari database revealed a shocking truth. In over 3 centuries of expansion, no species had successfully resisted the Council's first demands for submission. Humanity had just made galactic history. President Coles addressed the United Nations emergency session as reports of the successful counterattack came in. "Today, we have shown the Galactic Council that Earth will not surrender its freedom without a fight. We have struck the first blow for our independence, but this conflict has only just begun." Across the galaxy, Council communications lit up with unprecedented news. The primitive humans had fought back and won the first round. The Galactic Council's response came swiftly and with overwhelming force. 7 days after Earth's surprising counterattack, the skies above the planet darkened as hundreds of warships emerged from hyperspace. This was no longer a simple conquest mission. This was retribution. Supreme Commander Draz of the Zinthari Military Command stood on the bridge of his flagship. The inevitable conquest, surveying the small blue planet below. "The humans have earned a proper response," he announced to his officers. "Begin the attack. Target their military installations first, then major population centers." The Council fleet consisted not only of Xanthari ships but vessels from a dozen other subjugated species, all bound by ancient treaties to provide military support. The Armada represented the largest fighting force assembled by the Council in over a century. On Earth, early warning systems blared as the invasion began. Defensive satellites activated, firing energy weapons reverse-engineered from Xanthari technology. They managed to destroy several smaller enemy vessels before being overwhelmed. Admiral Carter watched from the underground command center as the alien fleet deployed around the planet. "Activate Aegis Protocol," he ordered. "All surface-to-space batteries, commence firing." Hidden missile installations across Earth revealed themselves, launching volleys of modified interceptors. The weapons incorporated alien technology recovered from the mothership attack, making them far more effective than anything humans had possessed just weeks earlier. But even with these improvements, Earth was badly outgunned. New York was the first major city hit. Energy beams sliced through skyscrapers, shattering steel and glass. Sydney followed, then Moscow, Cairo, and Rio de Janeiro. Within hours, every continent had suffered devastating attacks. Civilian casualties mounted as people fled burning cities. President Coles addressed the nation from a bunker deep beneath the Appalachian Mountains. "We will not surrender in the face of this brutality." The Galactic Council has shown its true nature, not as benevolent rulers but as conquerors who destroy any who resist their will. Even as she spoke, Earth's military forces continued fighting against impossible odds. Fighter pilots engaged alien ships in desperate aerial battles. Ground forces used recovered alien weapons to defend what remained of major cities. Colonel William Bennett, brother of the Space Marine who had participated in the mothership raid, led a team analyzing combat footage from around the world. For 3 days straight, they studied every encounter, looking for any weakness in the alien technology. On the 4th day of the assault, Bennett noticed something critical. "Look here," he said, pointing to a slowed-down video of a damaged Xanthari cruiser. "Every time our weapons hit near these junction points, their shields fluctuate in a distinct pattern." Dr. Garcia, who had helped reverse-engineer the alien technology, leaned forward. "Those must be power relay nodes. Their shield systems are centralized rather than distributed." Bennett nodded. "Exactly. If we can overload those nodes with concentrated fire." The discovery spread rapidly through Earth's remaining command structure. New battle plans were developed focusing all available firepower on these vulnerable points. In orbit, Commander Draz grew frustrated as human resistance continued despite devastating losses. "These primitives should have surrendered days ago," he complained to his executive officer. "No species has maintained resistance this long." "Perhaps we have underestimated them," the officer suggested. "The database indicates humans have spent much of their history fighting each other. They have millennia of warfare experience." Draz dismissed the concern. "Experience means nothing against our technology. Intensify the bombardment. I want this planet pacified within 2 days." But even as he gave the order, a new pattern emerged in the human counterattacks. Earth forces had begun concentrating their fire on specific points of the alien vessels. Several smaller ships had already fallen to this targeted approach. In the Arizona bunker, engineers worked frantically to modify Earth's remaining nuclear arsenal based on Bennett's discovery. If they could deliver these weapons directly to the power nodes of the larger Council ships, they might have a chance. The human resistance had found a glimmer of hope, but time was running out as more cities fell each hour to the Council's relentless assault. Aboard the Council flagship Inevitable Conquest, a junior communications officer approached Commander Draz with obvious hesitation. "Supreme Commander, we've intercepted unusual transmissions between Earth forces and another source." Draz turned from the tactical display. "Explain." "The signals appear to be coming from a Nardari frequency, sir. They're encrypted, but the pattern is unmistakable." Draz's expression darkened. The Nardari had been among the first species conquered by the Council centuries ago. Though officially loyal, rumors of dissent among their ranks had persisted for decades. Find the source. Now, unknown to Draz, the communication represented a turning point in the conflict. The Nardari, impressed by humanity's unprecedented resistance, had secretly reached out to Earth's military leadership. They weren't the only ones. In a secure underground facility beneath the ruins of Geneva, Dr. Susan Baker faced a holographic projection of a being unlike any human had seen before. The creature had 6 limbs, iridescent skin, and compound eyes that shifted color as it spoke. "I am Valakir of the Nardari Resistance," the alien said through a translation device. "For 3 centuries, we have waited for a species brave enough to challenge the Council. You humans have done what we thought impossible." Baker, a linguistics expert who had been studying alien languages since first contact, nodded cautiously. "We're fighting for our survival, but we're losing." "Perhaps not," Valakir replied. "The Council's power relies on fear and the belief that resistance is futile. Your actions have created cracks in that belief. Several subjugated species are now questioning Council authority." The Nardari shared critical intelligence, fleet positions, command protocols, and most importantly, the location of the Council's central communication hub, a massive station hidden in a neighboring star system. Destroy this, and the Council fleet loses its ability to coordinate attacks, Valakir explained. As Baker relayed this information to military command, similar conversations were occurring elsewhere. Representatives from the Kelvari, the Mizuchi, and 3 other formerly conquered species had established contact with human leaders. Each brought valuable intelligence and offered covert assistance. Admiral Carter assembled a joint human-alien planning team. "We need to coordinate our efforts," he told the gathered representatives. "The Council believes they face only Earth. They don't realize they're fighting the beginning of a galactic rebellion." The plan that emerged was audacious. While Earth forces would launch a desperate offensive to draw attention, a joint strike team would target the communication hub. If successful, it would throw the invasion fleet into disarray. Meanwhile, in orbit, Commander Draz faced the first signs of trouble within his own ranks. A Mizuchi destroyer had mysteriously broken formation. 2 support vessels crewed primarily by Kelvari reported technical difficulties that prevented them from participating in the next bombardment. "I want those ships investigated," Draz ordered, suspicion growing, "and increased surveillance on all non-Zinthari crew members." But the defections had already begun. Throughout the massive invasion fleet, members of long-subjugated species were making choices, small acts of sabotage, misinterpreted orders, and in some cases, outright mutiny. On Earth, Dr. Baker worked with representatives from 6 alien species to coordinate the coming offensive. Language barriers and centuries of cultural differences made collaboration challenging, but a shared determination to end Council dominance united them. "My people can provide stealth technology for your strike vessels," offered the Kelvari ambassador, a serpentine being who communicated partially through color changes in her scaled skin. "The Mizuchi will create a diversion near the Jovian moons," added another ally. "Several of our ships will appear to malfunction, drawing Council forces away from Earth." The combined plan took shape, a multi-species assault against the Council's communication hub, synchronized with a massive Earth counterstrike targeting the invasion fleet's vulnerable power nodes. As preparations reached their final stages, President Coles addressed the hastily formed alliance. "For centuries, the Council has ruled through fear and division. They never imagined their conquered subjects would unite. They never believed humans would fight back against impossible odds. Today we proved them wrong on both counts." Across Earth and secretly throughout the invasion fleet, final preparations were made for humanity's last, desperate gambit, one that would either save Earth or ensure its complete destruction. The combined fleet of Earth and rebel alien vessels gathered at the edge of the solar system, hidden behind Saturn's rings. 17 ships in total, A pitiful force compared to the Council Armada, but their only hope. Captain Ryan Murphy stood on the bridge of the Defiance, now retrofitted with Nardari stealth technology and Kelvari weapon systems. Final checks complete, his executive officer reported. All ships signal ready. Murphy nodded, his face reflecting the gravity of their mission. If they failed, Earth would fall, and the nascent rebellion would be crushed before it truly began. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Operation Freedom begins now." Across the solar system, events unfolded with precise coordination. 3 Mizuchi cruisers suddenly attacked their Xanthari companions near Jupiter, creating confusion in the Council's defenses. On Earth, the remaining ground forces launched a massive counterattack against landing parties in North America and Asia. As Commander Draz scrambled to respond to these unexpected threats, 17 ships accelerated toward a specific target. Not Earth, not the Council flagship, but a small artificial moon orbiting a gas giant in a neighboring star system. This was the central communication hub that coordinated all Council military operations. "Transit in 30 seconds," announced Defiance's navigator as the small fleet approached the coordinates provided by their alien allies. The experimental jump drives, a combination of human ingenuity and alien technology, engaged, tearing holes in space-time. The sensation was nauseating, like being turned inside out, but it worked. The Allied fleet emerged directly above their target. "Hub defenses active," reported the tactical officer. 8 patrol ships approaching. Murphy's voice remained steady. "All vessels, execute attack pattern Delta. Protective screen around the Hammer." The Hammer was a modified cargo vessel carrying the weapon designed by Garcia and Wilson, a combination of Earth's nuclear technology and the energy manipulation principles discovered in alien power systems. The weapon couldn't be deployed remotely. Someone would have to deliver it directly to the hub's core. As the battle erupted around the communication hub, Murphy received confirmation that the Earth offensive was drawing Council forces away from their primary mission. Commander Draz, still unaware of the true threat, had committed 90% of his fleet to crushing what he perceived as humanity's last desperate attack. "Hammer reports ready for insertion," said the communications officer. Murphy took a deep breath. "Give me a channel." The face of Commander Eric Fuller appeared on screen. Fuller and his volunteer crew had known from the beginning that the Hammer mission would be one way. "You're clear for approach, Hammer," Murphy said. "And thank you." Fuller nodded once. "For Earth and for freedom. Hammer out." The modified vessel accelerated toward the hub, absorbing devastating fire from defense systems. 3 Allied ships were destroyed, creating a path, but the Hammer broke through, crashing through the outer hull of the station. Fuller's voice came through once more, breaking up with interference. "We're in. Proceeding to the core. 20 seconds tow." The transmission cut off as the Hammer's crew fought their way to the center of the facility. Murphy and the remaining fleet continued engaging the defenders, preventing them from stopping Fuller's team. Aboard the Council flagship, Commander Draz was receiving troubling reports. "We've lost contact with the communication hub," an officer reported with obvious fear. "Impossible," Draz began, but his words were cut short as a blinding flash erupted from the direction of the neighboring star system. The Hammer's weapon had detonated. The hub didn't simply explode. It collapsed in on itself as the modified warhead created a localized distortion in space-time. Nothing remained except scattered debris. Throughout the solar system, Council ships suddenly lost coordination. Command protocols failed as ships could no longer receive central authentication. The carefully orchestrated invasion dissolved into chaos. Earth forces, along with their new allies, pressed the advantage. Without centralized command, the individually superior Council vessels fell one by one to concentrated attacks on their vulnerable power nodes. 3 days later, Commander Draz faced the unthinkable. With over 60% of his fleet destroyed or disabled and growing mutinies among non-Xanthari crews, he sent a transmission to Earth's leaders. The Council requests a cessation of hostilities and terms for withdrawal.